I'm Jocelyn Bamford, and every week we introduce a new entrepreneur or expert in the economy to tell their stories and unpack the challenges of keeping jobs in Canada, as well as to discuss potential solutions for job growth and prosperity. On June 20th, 2022, the federal government announced the ban of the manufacturing and import of single-use plastics, and bearing a few targeted exceptions recognizing some specific cases. This will come into effect on December 2022. Joining us to discuss today is Joachim Niewels, Vice President of Innovation and Sustainability at Husky Technologies, and Veso Sobot, Executive Director at the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada, and a plastic industry expert. Welcome to the program, gentlemen. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
We're going to start first with you, Joachim. Could you give us a quick overview of Husky Technology and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. Husky Technologies was founded in 1953 by a German immigrant, and we are serving the medical, food, beverage packaging industry. We are a truly global company with more than 4,300 employees, with 40 locations, and we're serving 140 different countries. I personally joined Husky in 1999. I'm holding a master's degree in engineering and spent the first decade of my career in Germany. Canada had attracted me for the freedom and abundance of opportunities. And in my current role as a VP Innovation and Sustainability, I oversee Husky's global innovation portfolio. I'm named inventor in some 300 actually, but patents. And if I reflect back, I can honestly say that any innovation has always led us to a more ideal state, a reduction of material use, energy use, a smaller carbon footprint, better performance. So sustainability goes and depends on innovation, and sustainability needs innovation. It doesn't need bans.
Yeah, absolutely. Great innovation in Canada. We're leading. Husky, I know, is a leader in that. Vess, same question. Walk us through your industry experience. I know you're an expert in the plastics industry.
Jocelyn, I'm an engineer too, so we have two engineers on the interview today. I've been in the plastics industry for 36 years, just recently retired, and currently I'm a volunteer for the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada, and we're dedicated to trying to keep businesses in Canada and jobs in Canada and trying to streamline opportunities so that Canadians can win. Especially trying to push back against policies that might not be friendly to Canadian manufacturers and Canadian jobs.
Yeah, and it's just astounding. It's death by 1,000 cuts, one after the other. And when I saw this plastics ban coming into effect in a mere 6 months, and the amount of work that's going to have to retooling for especially the food industry, it's astounding. So let's talk about this plastic ban and let's get right to it. Joachim, let's start with you. What is it going to mean to Canadian and Canadian jobs?
Well, very simply, Canadian plastics industry employs 173,000 people. It was a $94 billion industry in 2021. So that means too that the cost for Canadians are expected to go up even more amidst all the other cost drivers that we see recently. First of all, the bans will not help the environment. The dilemma is that people in the political arena often don't consider what proposed policies will actually do. What they are looking at is they spend their time describing the desirable attributes of its platonic ideal. But the bans seem to be really more virtue signaling than that they really solve problems. Let me maybe give you a quick example. And I ran into that this morning. I had a coffee, an ice cap. And so I want to talk a little bit about the straws. The plastic straws are banned and replaced by paper now. What's the real problem, so? Is it the material? No, it was not the material. The problem was with the recycling technology. It's the straw, because of its shape, falls through the sieves and so then cannot be recycled. And innovation, you would argue, could reasonably well and easily overcome the problem. And then the plastic would be actually the ideal material because plastic can be reused over and over. Instead, we now go to paper straws made from 100% virgin paper pulp. It's nothing recycled in there. And that really cements the make, use, toss kind of waste model, linear waste model that we wanted to avoid. What is the result of that? Well, the paper waste generation is expected to grow by nearly 3 million tons over the next 10 years.
So I'm going to stop you there. We have to go to break. You're watching Canadian Innovators. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're discussing the federal government's plastic ban and what's going to happen to Canadian and Canadian industry because of this. Ves, let's go to you. Your thoughts on this legislation that's coming fast and furious.
Well, I think Joachim hit the nail on the head just before break there. What the government policy is going to do is double the amount of waste that's created and double the cost to the taxpayer to dispose of, which really is the definition of a bad policy. Joachim had mentioned paper straws. Those paper straws use glue that's carcinogenic. So they're changing something that's very well known, very well understood, and performed very well, and replacing it with something that's worse. It just doesn't make sense. They should stop immediately. That would be the better course.
So, gentlemen, on their June 20th press release, the federal government claimed, after working with Canadians and stakeholders alike to design the ban, the government is taking the final step to deliver this commitment. Tell us about the consultation period. Did you folks feel that the government actually listened to the industry and the industry partners? Joachim, you first.
Well, I think I can tell honestly that we were highly engaged from day one. We participated at any level of government. We had meetings with even the Associate Assistant Deputy Minister at the ECCC. We did provide detailed, I think, well-researched comments on the proposed order. And we did request a revision board, as, by the way, many other groups requested, and it was denied. We also participated actually in working sessions with the ECCC. In short, we brought ourselves in deeply, and we were fully invested in this. Regretfully, and I got to really say it that way, we had to learn that our suggestions were not acted upon, nor did the process leave us with the impression that we had a meaningful discussion and outcomes. In hindsight, it's hard to not to conclude that the whole process was mostly, let me call it, window dressing. And it's interesting, even so, there was a clear need to better understand the subject matter. And the interesting part is even the ECCC issued science assessment concluded that it is, and I quote here, that research be conducted to address key knowledge gaps that were identified. So it sadly appears the outcome has already been predetermined, I would say. And this is tragic, as bans will stifle innovation, and Canadian companies were pioneers in recycling globally.
So Joachim, for those that don't know, could you just tell us what the ECCC is?
That's the Environment and Climate Change Ministry.
Great, perfect. Ves, in an article in the Toronto Star on June 21st, titled "Why Canada's Plastics Ban is More Than Just About Litter," Marco Chan Overd states that according to research, this ban is also about limiting the demand for oil. Can you comment upon this?
Well, the interesting thing about plastics is you cannot make plastics without oil or natural gas. And this federal government has had a very overt and open policy of trying to reduce the oil and gas industry in Canada. In fact, Jerry Butt said that oil and gas will not be in Canada by 2050. So this is just a component part. I totally agree with his article. This is just one phase of the big total program to get rid of our birthright. Canada is the third largest producer of oil and gas in the world. They want us not to use that ever again. But we see now with what's going on in the Ukraine that it's very important to be an energy superpower and self-sufficient. And this attack on plastics is misguided. It's just a component part on the attack on the oil industry.
And indeed, we see the linkages between democracy and having affordable energy and resources. Joachim, in about the minute we have left, the food services industry, from freezies to cookie manufacturers, are reeling when they're looking, and some of them are looking at relocation. Such a tight time frame. What are you hearing on the impacts on the industry and also investment in Canada because of this plastics ban?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we see is really that recycling lines and investments are in circular economy. Really what we would want to do is getting postponed and even outright canceled. And I want to drive this point maybe one more time home with the straws that we talked about. Like, this is a solution that is really not meant to be in a liquid. Like a paper straw is absorbing liquid. We know that. The paper straw gets soggy. It has glue and additives in it to stop it from that. Well, if it got soggy, and mine actually did get soggy very much, where does the additives end up is the question. But the worst part here is really that the legislation is not only for Canada, but it will ban our right to produce straws and export them as well. And this is critical because other countries may not ban, but innovate. And if they innovate their way out of it, and they really would have the ideal plastic material to go in an endless loop.
And we're back. Before we went to break, Joachim, I'm sorry I had to cut you off. Please finish your thought there.
Yes, the point was really that other industries, other countries will come up with innovations where the straw get captured and can be recycled indefinitely. And there, plastic is the ideal material, but the Canadian government will stop the Canadian companies from participating in this great and sustainable solution.
Wow, it's remarkable. Now, gentlemen, I know both of you have experience in projects in the circular economy. So, Joachim, can you tell us about Husky, some great innovation in that field?
Yeah, so we are very strong believers in the circular economy, and we believe in innovation. And the modern materials and technologies really allow us today to create highly efficient circular material loops. We are supporting these efforts with our products, like our recycled resin to preform design, where we take material directly from the recycling stream and process it into a high hygiene, medical grade new bottle or preform. And we also have excellent examples in terms of using that material over and over. But we don't stop there. So the point is that we really see ourselves as material agnostic, and we are focusing on enabling the best possible materials through our processes, our hardware, and our knowledge. So we're always ready for new innovations. And that's what we do with companies, with research institutes across the globe, really, to look for what is the next opportunity. And then finally, maybe one more point is that we also try to influence the bottle. How can it look iconic? How can it be more pure? How can we get rid of labels, of glue, of all the different materials? And that includes actually the closure that is then all one material. So that way you really get the highest yield out of the recycling, and you bring 95% of that material back home. That's as good as it can get, and it really helps Mother Nature.
Fascinating stuff. Veso, I know that you were also involved in the first trial of recycling of medical waste. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. At the Vinyl Institute of Canada, we implemented a recycling program with a number of hospitals in downtown Toronto, and we called it PDC 123. We collected oxygen masks, tubing, and saline bags, and we recycled them. Recycled plastic is very valuable. It should never really be thrown out. And this program was so successful, it's now being introduced across the country and is yielding results. So recovering vinyl, using it in other long life products is really the way to go. Canada has expertise in that. This policy will disincentivize companies from doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And great work and great innovation. Joachim, I heard you speak at an industry event about the fact that we need to stop looking at plastics as a waste and start looking at it as a resource. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, certainly. Yes, thanks for bringing this up. Plastics were at one time seen as the pure blessing, and they truly have uncounted applications in medical, food, personal hygiene, amongst many others. Just imagine our everyday life without plastic. Any person that had heart surgery and needed a stent will appreciate the value of medical grade PET plastic. Yet over the last decades, the society swung into the opposite direction, from initial exuberance into the opposite extreme of associating all environmental issues with plastic, and plastic is bad. And I gotta say, the industry carries some responsibility for that as well. We did fail to find ways to preserve the value of the plastic product or container at the end of its useful life. We allowed resources to go to waste. But the world has learned, innovated, and realized empty containers are not waste, but a resource for the next container. And globally, and that's very interesting and growing, 18 countries and jurisdictions in 4 continents demonstrate that plastic is ideally suited to be kept in the circular material use. They retain about 95% indefinitely. The loops are so efficient that a consumer will hold the same material that he just brought back for recycling within 5 days back in form of a new pristine bottle. And the benefit is very clear. We do not accumulate waste. We do not use crude oil. We use no trees or mining for aluminum, which all its environmental problems. It is the mind shift that you think resource rather than waste that really matters here.
Yeah, and it has a big impact. I mean, there's so much we can do. I got my grocery bag the other day. It was reusable. It said it used to be a plastic water bottle. So there's so much innovation. We can look at it as a resource, and we could do it right here with our Canadian innovation. So all things that we could do, plastic ban's not going to help. So we need to take a break. We'll be right back. Don't go away. You're watching Canadian Innovators. Welcome back. We're talking about the plastic ban. Gentlemen, this is the part of the show that is my favorite. Every guest, I ask my guests what they would do if they were politicians. Tell me the 3 things you would do to grow jobs in the economy. You're on the hot seat. Bess, let's start with you.
What a fun question. Number 1, unleash the Canadian entrepreneur. This red tape, these regulations stifle innovation. And that is really a concern because we have to compete globally, and if we're not competing globally, we're going to lose. So very, very important for the government to not look at bans, but rather look at opportunities. How do we make recycling work better? How do we build more pipelines so that there's more raw materials that we can use to compete in the marketplace? How can we make building permits happen faster? In Phoenix, Arizona, it takes 24 hours to get a building permit. In Mississauga, Ontario, it can sometimes take 24 months. So those are the kind of things I think we should focus on. And my pet one, of course, Jocelyn, is we must secure a Canadian exemption for Buy America. That's something that a lot of people forget. Our American friends love us until they don't love us. We have something they need right now. They need oil and gas. That's been very, very proven and very clear. And now's the time to secure a Canadian exemption so goods that we make can go down into the United States unfettered.
100%. Joachim, you're up. What would you do?
Well, I start with the sustainability. I would really foster innovation and encourage the industry to invest in state-of-the-art recycling infrastructure, making Canada an outright leader in the circular economy. Number 2, I would really want to replace the virtual signaling with true discourse and a stakeholder discussion with facts guiding decisions towards true sustainability. And then the last point, I would like to bring the spirit of freedom and abundance of opportunities back that so impressed me when I first visited Canada in the early 80s. This will require a vibrant culture of engaging all minds and hands and allows discussion and unconstrained thinking. That is so important that we don't stifle that. And then for that, we really need the small and mid-sized companies thriving.
Yeah, and you guys did some great work at Husky with going out and canvassing your employees. And I know freedom was very important to you, and very important to your employees and your suppliers. Bess, I'm going to give you the last word. Lori Goldstein wrote a great article on the PM single-use plastic ban is double trouble for Canadian taxpayers. Can you comment on this?
Lori Goldstein hits it right on the head, the nail on the head there. He said, our own government has a report that says the policy will double waste and it will double the cost of disposal. So when our government says, oh, we've looked at the science, they haven't looked at the science. They haven't looked at the implications. Their decision is purely political. It has nothing to do with the environment. The Fraser Institute just came out with a report called Canada's Wasteful Plan to regulate plastic waste. And they said Canada's waste in the plastic sectors is 3/1000th of 1% of all the plastic waste in the world. This is purely political. It has nothing to do with the environment. Let's work for the Canadian people. Let's work for Canadian jobs. Let's get to real work.
Absolutely. And we need to get the Canadian economy firing on all cylinders. The only way out of this mess is more jobs, more people working, paying taxes, and growing the economy. And this is the way we have to move forward. A plastics ban is not going to do anything except for cost us jobs and investment in Canada as companies start to scurry to move production in other areas so that they can compete. So thanks, gentlemen. A fascinating but scary piece of legislation that has clearly not been fully explored by the federal government. They haven't taken input from the industry and the consumers, and it's only ultimately going to drive inflation up more. So I want to thank you both for joining me for this very important conversation.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks to my guests, Joachim Niewels, Vice President of Innovation and Sustainability at Husky Technologies, and plastics industry expert and Executive Director of the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada, Veso Sobot. I'm Jocelyn Bamford. Thank you for watching Canadian Innovators. If you're an innovator, tell us your story. Write to us at CanadianInnovators@thenewsforum.ca, and we'll see you next time right here on the News Forum Network.